Okay, so we have to spend some time today talking about the general election in the United Kingdom late last week because there is so much being said about it and how it does or doesn't relate to the upcoming 2020 election here in the United States and Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And there's a lot of interesting and good, thoughtful takes about this, but there's also some bad talking points and misinformation that's being spread. So let's start with the facts. What happened in the UK? Trumpian Conservative Party Prime Minister Boris Johnson won with the Tories, the right wing party, getting a majority of 80 seats in the House of Commons. This truly is huge, and it's especially huge because the Tories had just lost the majority back in 2017. And then, meanwhile, a crushing defeat for the Labour Party and its prime minister candidate, then leader who has since resigned, Jeremy Corbyn. Major losses, ended up with the lowest proportion of seats since 1935, did the Labour Party. A brutal defeat. I mean, that's the only way I can really characterize it. And Jeremy Corbyn has resigned as the head of the Labour Party. Now, meanwhile, the Scottish National Party won a huge victory in Scotland, winning 48 of 59 seats. That has some interesting relationships to the Scottish independence movement, the Brexit and the view of Brexit in Scotland. And there's a lot to discuss there as well. So let's go through it in pieces. Was this a landslide for the right in the United Kingdom? It was, absolutely. Is it a crushing defeat for Labour, considering that it is sort of the closest to the modern American progressive movement of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? It is absolutely a crushing defeat for Labour in the UK. But this is where a lot of the analyses start to go off the rails, because when we think further, there are people saying this is a signal. What happened in the UK is a signal that there is a rejection of the Bernie Warren ideology and policy prescriptions happening worldwide. And it signals that someone with Bernie or Warren's platforms here in the United States will get crushed in 2020. Trump is going to win. The Democrats would be very, very wrong to go with someone like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren because they can't win, as proven by the defeat of Labour in the UK. This analysis is too simplistic. So let's try to flesh it out a little bit and look at it more closely. First of all, the starting point in the UK is a much stronger social democracy than we have here in the United States when you look at the institutions that they already have. For example, the UK already has nationalized healthcare, the NHS. Now, I know that there are some ideas of Boris Johnson dismantling it, but the point is they've had it for a long time. It is popular. Voting for Labour is not how you might get such a system of nationalized healthcare. They have it. Similarly, on education in the UK, on other safety nets, in so many other areas, these policies are already part of British society. So when you realize that they already have these things, Labour there is not like Bernie or Warren here, because here the left is trying to get lots of things for the first time that the UK already has. So the stakes are very different. And therefore, comparing what happened to Labour in the UK to a Bernie Warren candidacy or presidency or nomination on the Democratic side here is not an apt comparison in that way. In the United States, the people offering a lot of those programs that are already part of British society are the leftmost of those running in the Democratic Party. Whereas in the UK, many of these programs have been in place for decades. So Labour being brutally defeated in the UK, which they were, doesn't confirm that the policy of Bernie, Warren, Social Democrats is doomed to fail in the United States. Now, that gets us to Labour as a specific group of people, Jeremy Corbyn as a person versus Bernie, Warren, etc. Having a candidate who was dogged by allegations of coddling anti-Semitism, not taking it seriously, having unsavory characters in their coalition, and who was seen as flaccid in his responses was not good. Now, we don't need to argue about each claim related to anti-Semitism, because I know there are people who say, no, look, he did this investigation into this anti-Semitic allegation. We don't need to argue about it. I don't want to make this an adjudication of each claim. You can research it for yourself. Without adjudicating each claim, I think we would all agree that the allegations clouded Labour for a long time, and they were not definitively done away with in the eyes of the voters. And then further, by the way, right after this election, former London Mayor Ken Livingstone, who's a former Labour Party MP who was actually suspended over anti-Semitism, came out and said, I told you, Labour lost because of the unhelpful Jewish vote, which is not only insane, it's also mathematically impossible. There are roughly 400,000 Jews in the UK. That includes children, that includes, that's everybody. And Corbyn lost the popular vote by nearly 4 million votes. So I don't even know why I have to mention that, but obviously those types of claims are absurd. But they're exactly the type of stuff that people are concerned about. Labour had a cloud over it that is specific to Labour. That being said, I have pointed out that Bernie's got some problematic surrogates. Linda Sarsour is one, also dogged with anti-Semitism in her past. I think Bernie should separate from her. I just don't know that that is going to take Bernie down. This narrative has not become a predominant one in the United States. Elizabeth Warren had a racist, homophobic, trans black woman as a surrogate. We called her out. I believe she has been removed from the Warren campaign. But what's not being mentioned in all of this is Brexit, which is looming over everything in the UK in a way that it is not here in the United States. So in addition to the stakes being different because of the social programs that the UK already has, in addition to the cloud over Corbyn being very different than anything affecting Bernie or Warren right now, Labour's position on Brexit amounted to maybe, okay, which is a very weak position and probably didn't help them. So what can we glean from the UK results? We can't say Bernie Warren type politicians are dead in the water because they're not. We can't say Americans don't want progressive policy on healthcare and education and corporate reform because by and large, the polls tell us that they do. What we do need to say is what I've been saying for a year. No matter what the hypothetical matchups might say, Trump might absolutely crush everyone, and we need to fight for every single vote. No constituency can be assumed to be with us until they go out and vote in 2020. We can confirm that having a policy and a set of ideas is vastly more important than a grievance candidate or an anti-Trump candidacy. That, I think, is a lesson. It was a right-wing landslide in the UK, but it's a cautionary tale about the 2020 election, not a sign to throw in the towel because Bernie Warren types are obviously being rejected. Different situation, different electorate, different status quo and starting point. And the answer to it all is the same thing that we knew before the UK election, which is get out the vote, assume nothing. And we will actually have some interesting polling later that confirms that all is not well, so to speak. But more on that coming up a little bit later. Today's program brought to you in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist is a great service that I use all the time. What they do is they take thousands of the most popular nonfiction books, including the newest bestsellers. They condense them into 15-minute audiobooks that you can listen to, and you still get the most crucial information and insights from each book. And I've listened to a ton of books on Blinkist. I recently checked out Soccernomics by Simon Cooper. We do have, after all, the World Cup going on recently. We also have been talking about BS Jobs, and there is a great new book, BS Jobs by David Graeber, which I listened to on Blinkist. They're constantly adding new books to the platform. You will never run out of fascinating and critically acclaimed books to enjoy. And our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm putting a link in the video description. And after the free trial, if you like it, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for about $5 a month. That's BLINKIST.com/PAKMAN.